The Senate will come to order. Members, please stand. Today, I ask members to pause for a moment of silent prayer and reflection. And after the silent prayer and reflection, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, members. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. The Secretary will take the roll.
Senators Abler, Anderson B., Anderson P., Bach, Benson, Bigham, Carlson, Chamberlain, Champion, Clausen, Cohen, Swazinski, Dames, Dibble, Draheim, Dietzick, Eaton, Eichhorn, Eakin, Franzen, Friends, Gazelka, Goggin, Hall, Herr, Hayden, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Ingebrigtsen, Isaacson, Jasinski, Jensen, Johnson, Kent, Kiffmeyer, Klein, Coran, Lane, Lang, Latz, Limmer, Little, Marty, Matthews, Miller, Nelson, Newman, Newton, Osmic, Pappas, Pratt, Rarick, Ralph, Rest, Rosen, Rude, Senjum, Simonson, Sparks, Tomasoni, Torres, Ray, Utke, Weber, Westrom, Uyghur, Wickland.
A quorum is present. Pursuant to Rule 14.1, the following members intend to vote under Rule 40.7. Senators Anderson B., Carlson, Clausen, Dames, Eaton, Hall, Housley, Johnson, Klein, Lane, Latz, Little, Matthews, Newman, Newton, Pappas, Ralph, Rest, Senjum, Sparks, Torres Ray, Westrom, and Wickland. Members will begin on the Senate agenda today with the fifth order of business, reports of committees. There are two reports to be read by the Secretary.
Senator Nelson from the Committee on E12 Finance and Policy, to which was referred Senate File Number 3312, a bill for an act relating to education and finance, reports the same back with a recommendation that the bill do pass. Pursuant to Joint Rule 2.03, the bill was referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration. Senator Osmic from the Committee on Energy and Utilities, Finance and Policy, to which was referred Senate File Number 4409, a bill for an act relating to energy, reports the same back with a recommendation that the bill be amended as follows: delete everything after the enacting clause and insert, and when so amended, the bill do pass. Pursuant to Joint Rule 2.03, the bill was referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration.
Both bills will be sent to the Committee on Rules and Administration pursuant to Rule 2.03. Moving to the eighth order of business, introduction and first reading of Senate files. Listed on today's introduction calendar are Senate file numbers 4525 to 4536. These Senate files will be given their first reading and referred as indicated. Moving to the ninth order of business, motions and resolutions. In addition to the author's motions listed in the agenda, there's one additional motion to be read by the Secretary.
Senator Matthews moves that the name of Senator Benson be added as co-author to Senate file number 3365.
We'll take these authors' motions listed in the agenda and the one read by the Secretary as one motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to capture the votes of the members voting from alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Remaining under motions and resolutions, Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bills be made bills be made special orders for immediate consideration. There's 5 bills, members, on your desk.
Members, the first bill up for consideration is number 35 on general orders. It is Senate File 3159, Senator Lang.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's first of all, I'd just like to say it's nice to be back on the floor with the rest of the good senators here. It's a little out of my normal realm, but this is the first bill I'm going to have up on the floor this year, so thanks for having me back. 3159. Many of you know that in my personal life, I work in the EMS services field, and over the last few years, it's been more readily apparent as I've heard again and again calls go first and second toned, which means they get called more than once, more than twice for some of these transfers, some of these services that in western and rural Minnesota, oftentimes we have issues getting EMTs, paramedics, and even nurses to cover some of these, whether they be a transfer from hospital to hospital or whether they're transferring someone from an accident scene to the hospital or any other services that EMS may need. And over the last few months, I've been working a lot with Representative Hewitt in the House, and I have to, give him a good thank you for the work that he's done. He has a vast amount of experience in the EMS field, and I've leaned on him quite heavily over the last few months here. We've done around the state listening sessions with EMS services through rural Minnesota and through some metro areas. And what we came up with over the last few months was that there are several key areas within the EMS field that would, one, incentivize new people to come into the industry, and two, that we would allow some of those people that have gotten into the industry to continue their education, to continue their learning, to continue receiving what we would consider a good income level. And part of that larger package is this bill, 3159, which I have in front of you today. 3159 is a very simple bill. It's some of the most the easiest things that we could think of that we would have non-controversial to bring in front of you today. And there's just 4 lines. So part of it is for that first-time person going into the EMS field, and as they go through the education, they apply for reimbursement for their schooling, for reimbursement for some of the supplies. And what this does is it ups that value from $600 to $900. Now, it doesn't seem significant to us, but as these young students are going into their field, that $300 makes a huge difference. Line 1.16 through 275 to 375. This is for that continued education, the ongoing stuff for the people that have been in the field and now are trying to either excel their career by going to the next step, or I need some reoccurring education. And then there's one small line that that changed in 1.17. So members, it's a very small, it's a very easy bill, but it is the first step in a series of steps that I hope over the next few years that you'll support myself and Representative Hewitt and the EMS field as we go on. So with that, Mr. Members and Mr. President, I yield.
Members were on Senate File 3159, discussion. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a reasonable bill that will help recruit people, and where there are shortages for EMS field, these volunteers deserve a little bit more, and the money's already there because it's been given to the EMS Regulatory Bill Board, and I believe that should be sufficient to cover the cost of the increased reimbursements.
Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the Secretary will give Senate File 3159 its third reading.
Senate File number 3159, a bill for an act relating to health modifying reimbursement requirements for ambulance service volunteer education costs.
Third reading. Final discussion on Senate File 3159. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just appreciate the support on this. Thank you, Senator Marty, for the kind words. I think this is a nonpartisan issue that we can all get behind, and I appreciate a green vote.
Members were on final passage of Senate File 3159. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in Capitol Room 303 can make their way down to the chamber. While they're on their way, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber to vote. While they're on their way down, members in Capitol Room 206, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in Capitol Room 237, please come to the chamber and vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of those voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report an aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Torres Ray.
Senator Torres Ray votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I will now call on Senator Benson to report the votes for the members who are voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Bruce Anderson votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Mark Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, the next bill up for consideration is number 103 on general orders, Senate File 4486, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 4486 is the coronavirus relief account. And under current law, members, federal funds from the CARES Act are deposited into the state treasury and subject to a review process by the Legislative Advisory Commission. And as a quick summary and review of the LAC Commission is, it's 6 members, the majority leader, the finance chair, and then the appropriate rotating member for the fund that we're talking about. And then, of course, in the House, it is the Speaker of the House, the majority leader, and again, a rotating member where the appropriate funds are coming from. There's no minorities on there, and there is no language in or the ability to stop any of the appropriations going out, just the ability to say no, and that's all. And has been proven to be somewhat, and I love this word, clunky at times. Senate File 4486 creates the coronavirus relief account in the federal fund in the state treasury. Money from the CARES Act is credited to this account, and funds in this account cannot be spent unless made by a direct appropriation in law. The funds must be used to pay for expenses that are incurred by the state related to the COVID-19. And when the funds in the account are spent, MMB is instructed to close the account. When this bill, Mr. President, members, was heard in Finance last week, there was $1.093 billion that had been sent to MMB under the Legislative Advisory Commission guidelines. At this time, the guidelines have come through, and it has been very clear by the National Treasury that there is no revenue replacement that can be used for the CARES Act. Also, as of Friday morning, the rest of the funds that were sent, or that were remaining that had not been sent, have now been sent to and are sitting at MMB. So, briefly, 1.093 was sent to MMB on April 15th, and then 766.5 million was sent on April 24th. And I believe that Hennepin and Ramsey County received a direct appropriation on April 24th for $317 million. The funds are to be used, as I said, there is no revenue replacement, but there can be a federal appropriation for the monies that have already been spent for the COVID-19 situation, which amounts to, in the state, which we have spent, is $520.4 million. Briefly, a summary, there was the $20.1 million for the public health response transfer, and then another $200 million for the public health response transfer for the hospitals. And then, the first $20 million was for MDH. That was a transfer. The second one was for the hospitals. And if you remember, it was $50 million immediately and then $150 million in grants. So that comes to $200 million. And then Chapter 17, there was the COVID-19 Minnesota Fund was $298 million. Of that, the governor has the ability to use $200 million for immediate use of ongoing emergencies, which we have been using, Mr. President and members. And then there was also Chapter 74 for agriculture, a second harvest food bank grant of 1.250. So that comes to $520.4 million that we have spent that can be reimbursed by the federal funds, CARES Act. Also, the federal fund, besides the reimbursement or the federal appropriation for these dollars, we also have the ability to spend them on current COVID-19 expenses, and then also future expenses up till the end of December for any COVID-related expenses. This language has been fashioned from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, where the legislature had the direct authority over funds that came in from federal funds. And briefly, members, you have $2.186 billion that was appropriated to Minnesota based on a population of 2% of what was appropriated by the feds in the CARES Act. $317 million went to Hennepin and Ramsey County. That leaves 1.869 or 1.87, let's say that is left for the Minnesota distribution. From that, we are going to get a federal appropriation of $520 million, and then there is, based on the formula that was provided by the federal government, there's $667 million left for other local governments, counties, cities, townships, etc. And that is a remaining balance of $682 million that is left for various other necessities and the COVID-related issue. Members, the reason why this bill is before you is I clearly think the legislature is the body that is equipped to manage and allocate the money that the federal government has appropriated. And clearly the legislature is the one to take the responsibility for the decisions of this appropriation. The legislature was created and elected to listen and react to the concerns of the public and to make corrections and appropriations. MMB is not prepared for testimony from interest groups and the general public. MMB is not prepared for the responsibility of making certain the $2.187 billion in the CARES Act is spent effectively. With that, Mr. President, I stand for questions.
Discussion on Senate File 4486. Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have the A50 amendment. I offer the A50 amendment.
Senator Champion offers the A50 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Champion moves to amend Senate File number 4486 as follows, page 1, line 7, after received, insert. This is the A50 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill that is before the body was discussed in finance, and I understand that Commissioner Friends indicated that there's already a mechanism in order for these funds to be considered. My amendment does not deal with that at all. My amendment clearly articulates that this bill only covers funds received by the state from the Federal CARES Act, and I just wanted to be really clear because as Senator Rosen indicated that counties, specifically Ramsey and Hennepin, received a direct appropriation, and we just wanted to make sure that it was clear that this fund that Senator Rosen is putting forward does not have anything to do with that appropriation at all. And so it's just really simple. It just adds received, after received by the state.
Further discussion on the A50 amendment. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President and members, and thank you, Senator Champion, for the A50 amendment. I do stand in agreement of this, as it was a topic that we discussed in the finance hearing last week, and wasn't certain if this amendment and the wordage of by the state was going to tie the hands of the legislature or MMB, but it's clearly appropriate for Hennepin and Ramsey, which I understand that they have received their money and that it is sitting there. So with that, briefly, I do agree to this amendment, and I ask for your support.
Further discussion on the A50 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to capture the votes from the members in the alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Members, we're back on Senate File 4486 as amended. Further discussion? Any further discussion on Senate File 4486? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading. Before we go to third reading, Senator Franzen. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator Rosen. I have a few questions regarding this bill. I do sit on finance. This is my first year on that committee, and I'm learning quickly, but certainly a lot of the public might think this is a short bill, just a paragraph, but it has a lot of repercussions for future budgeting decisions made by our state regarding federal funds that are always coming to our state, especially in the health and human services arena. So, Mr. President, would Senator Rosen yield?
Senator Rosen will yield. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen, you made a good lay of the land of the money that's coming from the CARES Act to Minnesota, all over our state, in particular to our largest counties, that appropriations going directly to them. Thank you for adopting the amendment. My question is in regards to your comments about MMB not being prepared to handle such funds, when in fact MMB has been taking care of funds coming and transfers coming from the federal government for many, many years. As long as I understand, we've had a process in place. This is a part-time legislature, so we're not always in session to take in the federal money and then disperse it or appropriate it, as your bill is trying to change. Can you talk about what is the current process under the ALAC and what is wrong with the current process to handle the funds that are coming from the federal government? Can you explain it to Minnesotans so they understand how that process actually works today and how that money today, without this bill, would be appropriated?
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Franzen, and it's very nice to have you on finance. I welcome your participation. I believe that's a fair question. The LAC has, somebody in this chamber could tell me how long it's been around without any changes. 1979, I want to say. It's been around a long time without any changes. And the purpose of the Legislative Advisory Commission is just as advisory, that's it, with no ability to say or have any ability to say whether the appropriation is correct or not. And it, as I said, a very small group of people, 6 people, majority leader, finance chair, and the appropriately rotating person for the fund that's being used. In the House, I might have said it wrong, it's the Speaker of the House, the Ways and Means Chair, and the rotating member for the appropriate fund. And it has served its purpose in smaller amounts. And of course, MMB has had federal funds that have come to it with a direct purpose, such as disaster relief or some other direct appropriation, knowing exactly where that's going to be. I think this needs to have a broader lens and the authority of the people that have the ear of the public, have the ability to have public hearings, discussion with all the House and the Senate and the governor's input into it, and the public's interest going forward. And because there clearly is $682 million that is remaining after all the other federal appropriations are out of the bill, that would be for COVID related. We need to make sure that that money is used in an equitable and appropriate way. And then there's also $667 million that needs to go to any local government, which is a county, municipality, a town, a township, a village, a parish, a borough, and other unit of government, general government in the state level. So that's very broad, and that is going to take a much more concerted effort than I think, number one, the MMB has the capability of doing, and also it clearly follows on the legislative purview.
Thank you,
Further discussion,
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Franzen.
And if Senator Rosen will continue to yield, thank you for the explanation. Mr. President and Senator Rosen, you also mentioned the other times where we've had, where you base this bill from the American Reinvestment Act. Can you talk about how we dealt with the appropriation back then? Give us a little bit more insight into why you looked at that as a model and how did it work differently than the LAC?
Senator Rosen will continue to yield. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Franzen, or Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Franzen. I cannot find my exact notes on how that was appropriated, but I believe it was very similar. What is being done now is what was accomplished with the American Revitalization Recovery Act, and it was just for a different purpose, which I believe it was for housing back in 2009, but and not a CARES Act, and I'm still looking for my notes on that because I asked that very question, and we have discussed that. But I do believe that the language is almost exactly the same, and the allocation disbursement would run the same.
Mr. President and
Further discussion,
Senator Rosen, what was the amount of money that was appropriated with that example back when we had the different methods in place other than the LAC to allocate funding? Do you have a figure of how much we were allocating at that point?
Senator Rosen.
Mr. President, would Senator Franzen please answer that or ask that question again? I did not
Senator
understand
Franzen.
it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen, how much money were we transferred from the federal government with that example with the American Reinvestment Act?
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Franzen, I am not sure. I am not certain of how much money that was, and perhaps you know the answer. But I do know the process was the same. That a separate fund was created in the federal funds to at MMB to make sure that we had the appropriate place to put the ERA money, and then from there the legislature was able to appropriate that.
Thank you, Mr.
Further discussion,
President.
Senator
and
Franzen?
Senator Rosen, I don't have that number myself. We had this bill in committee, so this didn't come up. So, and if it did, I might have missed it in our Zoom committee. But to the extent that we are mirroring what we're trying to accomplish today to something we've done in the future, in the past, it would have been nice to really know how it all worked, so we could have talked about it more in depth in committee. But my point is this. We are an elected body. We are accountable to the people who vote for us. We're a part-time legislature. There is a place and a method in place right now to deal when we're not in session for exactly this type of transfer. I made comments in our committee hearing that I had really big reservations to change the process when in the middle of an emergency such as COVID-19. Every day changes, every hour changes, and to have us come back to session potentially in a special session to appropriate funding might actually hurt Minnesotans rather than help them. I believe that the money coming from the federal government has its own strings attached where we don't have any other form or any other area to spend it other than what is precisely specified by the federal allocation, which, by the way, is also being voted on by elected officials that represent our state. So I think there's a few layers of accountability already in the system. I understand we want to be involved in every single decision that happens from now until this pandemic is over, but that's just not feasible. I have my reservations right now, the things that have to happen quickly that the governor is in his whole entire right to do without our vote or our consult. I don't think everything's being done that way, but when you have an emergency, that's exactly what it is, something you have to act on very quickly. If we look at other times when we've tried to get in the way, just last session when we had HAVA funds from the federal government, and we, this body, stood in the way to disperse those funds to make sure that our elections are secure and safe and out of necessity. For whatever political reason, that was not done until the very end of session. I hate that this would happen the same way with these funds, that we make sort of a political debate over things that we're going to spend money when in fact those dollars are already specified by the federal government to where they need to be spent, just like it happened with HAVA funds. So, Mr. President, Madam, and Senator Rosen, can you guarantee that this would not happen with these funds, that they would not be politicized, that COVID funds would be done and in a matter of for what the emergency and what the specified direction of the federal government. My point is, I don't think there is room for hearings or anything, because we can't change where the money is going once the federal government disperses it. It is very specified to where it needs to go, and the state cannot change that. So, Mr. President, Madam Senator Rosen, can you talk about how that would work? What is the point of having a hearing over funds that have already specifically been given to the state for a specific reason under a specific legislation at the federal level?
Senator Rosen, will you continue to yield?
Yes, I will
Senator
continue
Rosen
to.
will continue to yield. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Franzen, in answer to your first question about how much was from the ERA Act, it was between 600 and 700 million, which did have legislative authority. So thank you for that question. Second of all, I don't think I would ever stand here and promise something that where you have a House and a Senate and governor, and we deliberate under this great dome, and this is what we do. So there are no promises coming from here, but I can say that we will continue to do our job and do it effectively. As far as being political with the HAVA money, that is not eligible in this account at all. It has a separate appropriation of $6.9 million coming from the feds in a separate area. So there is, as you said, no area for politics involved in the CARES Act. But this is a very, very tricky, is tricky the word, but there is $317 million that has gone to Hennepin and Ramsey County that they already are sitting on. The question is, there's cities and counties, and I believe one of your cities is in Hennepin County. Are they going to be receiving the money from Hennepin and Ramsey County for their share? Whereas the other counties throughout the state, we need to look at their direct federal appropriation and how that's going to be dispersed. So there's a lot of unanswered questions that, again, I think it takes the lens of the Senate, the House, and the governor and his staff to take a look at and make sure that these federal appropriations are done correctly and that are fair and equitable for everybody involved that has been touched by COVID-19. So yes, these are unprecedented times, but I think we have a system, we have a body in place, and we have the framework to discuss these issues and be nimble and be quick to get this money out. I'm not saying that we're tying the hands of the governor, because we could certainly do a pot of money for him to continue on after session's over with and use the commission, the COVID commission in place that has been working very, very well. And it's allowed him to get those funds out immediately within 24 hours. We have done that, and we are very proud of our work there. But to say that we don't have a right and a voice on these funds and how they're appropriated, I think is where the debate is. And I just think that this takes a voice of the public, and that includes those cities and counties and the National Sports Center in Blaine, and you could go on and on of all these people that have been affected by COVID-19. They need a place to talk and voice their opinion.
Further discussion on the bill, Senator Franzen?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen, I don't disagree for our body not to have a voice or a right to talk about these funds. Obviously, a lot of us are asking our federal partners to release funds to aid us. We can't do this alone with Minnesota taxpayers, and a lot of money comes from this state to the federal government, so it's time for us to get our fair share as well. I also think, all of my cities that I represent, Edina, Bloomington, Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, all of them are in Hennepin County, and I have been on phone calls with Hennepin County on a weekly basis. So has most of the delegation that is represented by Hennepin County. They are doing an extraordinary work to make sure that they are putting the money where they need to put it. It's a daily endeavor, and I commend their efforts. I have no question that they know exactly where that money needs to go, and they have been conducting public meetings as well, and with this Zoom technology and others, not face-to-face, but they have been doing that process publicly and have been very open about their communication, where the funding is going, where it needs to go. So I really don't have problems with that. They are elected officials at every county commissioner, every local elected city council person who might be involved in making sure that these funds go to the best use in their respective districts. I think they're in the best situation and position to really allocate those funding. I just have a really big concern that we're setting a precedent, the saying of if it ain't broken, don't fix it. If the LAC is working, if this fund that we just created during session so the governor could have some flexibility is working, why do we want to push for a bigger change that we have no idea what the unintended consequences are? I feel very uncomfortable moving in this direction, not because I don't want to have a voice and I don't have a right to have a voice in where these funds go, but the practicality of it, members. I believe that if we're coming, if we leave here May 18th and there's an emergency and money needs to be allocated right away, that it will take days or weeks, and if not even longer, to come together to an agreement before we come to a special session. That's real. That's happened for the last 8 years I've been in this body. Every time we've had a special session, it's not hours, it's not days, it's weeks and months before we come back here. And it's an orchestrated event. We have to come here physically. We don't know where we'll be as this pandemic keeps unfolding. So members, I just think we need to take a step back and think about, why do we have to push this right now when we don't necessarily know where we'll be come May 18th and further on? I have a really big struggle with this. I want to have a hand on it. We're in session now. I think we're making the governor know that we want to be involved, and at least I've had a lot of conversation with the governor's staff, including with the governor and the lieutenant governor and his commissioners, about every single concern I've heard in my district. Those have been open communications of where the funding needs to go, or where the help needs to go, or where we need to open businesses, and it's working. We're in session. But members, when we're not in session, again, this is a part-time legislature, we will be on call every minute of every day until those funds are expended. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I just think you all should think about whether that is the president that we want to have today, and precedence of having our hands tie these monies when your district might need them immediately. So just members, think about it. I don't have any problem with having complete oversight over the funding that's coming in to date while we're in session, but when we're not, we need to be careful how we proceed, because we might be tying our own hands. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Rosen, for bringing this discussion forward.
Members, we're on Senate File 4486 as amended. I have a list. Senator Gazelka is next, followed by Senator Frentz. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, we're going to get almost $2 billion that if we do nothing, the governor has complete discretion about how that money should be spent. And frankly, I think it's really important that the legislative bodies, the House and Senate, work with the governor. We're the ones that appropriate money, and I think that should be the case here. And so as we move forward, think about that. One of the things that was brought forward is, well, what are we going to spend the money on? Well, that's the point. We know it's going to be COVID-19 related, but is it going to be related to the hog farmers and the hundreds of thousands of hogs that have been euthanized, or the chickens that have been destroyed and made into dog food because the restaurants were closed and they no longer needed eggs and they no longer needed bacon? And is that a decision we're going to make? Who's going to make that decision? Is that the governor, or is that the governor working with the legislative bodies? Workers' compensation, is that an issue? We had to create extra language to make sure that people on the front lines were covered, but that has a price tag of, we don't know for sure, $200 million, $300 million. Is that going to come from this fund, or who decides that? And so there's going to be all kinds of issues that are going to be decided, and I don't think it should just be by one person. I think it should be the House and the Senate working together with the governor on equal footing to come up with those answers. We all know that COVID-19 is an epic problem for Minnesota and America and the whole world, and we are leaning into it together. But to say that the governor should do it all by himself, I think, is a mistake. And this language is really nothing new. It's in the last recession, coming out of the last recession, when we got federal resources, we had this kind of an arrangement. The House and Senate working with the governor to decide where to spend the money. And so I know that we can do this. This is our responsibility to do it this way. And without this, the governor does it all by himself. And I don't think the people of Minnesota want that.
Further discussion, I have Senator Frentz, followed by Senator Abler. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for this thorough discussion. I'm a no vote on this bill. I agree that we need legislative oversight, but the better process would be to continue to let MMB administer the funds with LAC oversight, as we do with other federal funds. The question was raised by my esteemed colleague, what about politics? And here's what I see. If the House and the Senate agree, the LAC process will take care of things just fine. Our concern is when the House and the Senate disagree and the effect that can have on the timing and the administration of these funds. I think the public is quite confident in the governor's ability to protect us. We are under a state of emergency, and for that reason, I'll be a no vote on this bill and think there's a better path for us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion on the bill, I have Senator Abler, followed by Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I appreciate the dialogue, and I actually stand to support this bill. This is, I think, really important. The times we are in are times no one has been through. I wasn't around in the late 20s, and I think that people will be making all kinds of comparisons to that. They're comparing it just to 2018 or 1918. So I just have taken a habit of reading, and I read the CBO current projection of output, employment, and interest rates, and their preliminary look at deficits. They're predicting a 12% GDP decline in the second quarter, which, if you care, is an annualized 40%. The reduction from the first quarter to second quarter this year was 6.8%, and that was the good quarter. So we are in for some really, really hard times. And I couldn't think of a better way to spend however many billion and a half or whatever it's going to be to patch the holes and help recovery happen than by a collaborative approach. And with all respect to the people that are in the administration, they don't live in 87 counties. They don't hail from 67 Senate districts and 134 House districts where they touch the people day in and day out. They are fine human beings, but they simply aren't connected the way we are to understand. And frankly, every bit of news that's coming out frightens me and terrifies me. And particularly, I thought I'd stand for a moment of silence. I thought that would be too theatrical, but I'm just reminding that very same administration and about the people on Main Street and how they should be open. If you read about, Senator Gazelka mentioned euthanizing chickens and hogs, we are on the edge of a near food chain interruption, which in some places maybe, I think the word famine is probably too strong for it yet, but it's going to really, really cause trouble. And me being from the great ag city of Anoka, I don't see that directly, but hearing the stories, they're extremely compelling. And so I think it's really important to open what we can and then try to sort things out. I feel I've spoken now 7 times in 7 meetings, and I wake up at 5 o'clock this morning again thinking about this stuff. I wish I could stop worrying about it. But I feel like the kid standing outside their house waiting for the fire department to come and there's no sirens. Please, sirens. Please, somebody say I care. Please, somebody say this really matters about these individuals on Main Street, the farmers way over how they are all over Minnesota, and that are really changing, not because of COVID, but because of the reaction to COVID. And that is really a big deal. I just read the St. Paul paper. There was a salon owner. She has a little shop. And she says, let us help figure things out. That's why you have a legislative process that this bill is about. Let us help figure things out. There's not a single process that I've been through in my 21 years of being privileged to stand on floors like this and across the street, that the process didn't get better with bipartisan, bicameral collaboration. We have great ideas, but they get better when they're sifted through. And Senator Franz and I have a great deal of respect for you, but we're going to be here this summer anyway. You just know because of the crises that are happening. And so some people say, well, these businesses, they should just not charge their renters rent. and because they're all rich. Well, this woman at her little shop said, even in this mandatory shutdown, we have continued to do the right thing. We pay our rent and pay our bills. We have discounted our rent to our stylists and offered multiple free weeks. We were lucky to have months in reserves as per best practice, but this has now gone for many weeks and our reserves are nearly gone. And likely will be our business, which we have worked so hard to build. Now, I can't imagine, just on stylists, they spend a great deal of time learning about sanitation and infection control, and they are, of anybody, well suited to handle this when they're, even these days, they know how to distance. They do it, their stations are spread out.
Mr. President.
Senator Isaacson, for what reason do you rise?
Just a point of information. What are we discussing right now?
Senator Isaacson, we're on Senate File 4486 as amended.
Is there any chance we could keep the discussion to that Senate file? I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Senator Abler, please proceed. Members, please keep your comments to the bill in front of us. Senator Abler.
This bill is all about looking after the micro needs of Minnesota. This is worrying about farmers who are killing tens of thousands of animals. This is about thousands of people, Senator Isaacson, in your district who are going to go out of business because of decisions that were made, and these individuals are very small. Skechers is open, but my little shoe store in Anoka that has one staffer and could have 2 people an hour isn't open. Crazy. And so this sort of bill is what we're going to need to find our way out of this. And I'm just shocked that you felt he had to interrupt me on this, Senator Isaacson. I have a great deal of regard for you, but holy cow. And Mr. President, oh, you want to interrupt again?
Members, please address your comments to the President through the President.
I apologize.
Let's stay focused on Senate File 4486 as amended. Senator Abler, please continue your
And my topic is why we're going to need this flexibility. Commissioner Franz appeared at our Human Services Committee, and I asked him this question about what timeline could I expect for this particular group so we might not have to rescue them. And he said, there's no timeline. That concerns me, and I think when we look back, we're going to see some errors that were made along the way. Mr. President, some of this money, I hope, goes to help give a PCAs a raise. And I hope some of the money goes to help group homes. I hope some of the money goes to help families with TEFRA who are going to need a way to survive this and their children with special needs, exactly to the point of the bill. And so I think that as we go forward, we want to make sure that we're putting our energy into what's really important, fixing JBS so they can be open and take care of those hogs, getting the nursing homes to be safe where the bulk of the deaths are, which actually need more help, and helping PCAs know how they should deport themselves. So, Mr. President, if I could quit talking about this, if I felt that somebody would say it's on the way, I would quit standing here and aggravating my good colleagues. But this bill, when the dust settles, is going to be the very kind of bill that we need. And I urge members to vote yes and let the process work that's worked so well for us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on the list is Senator Kiffmeyer, followed by Senator Benson. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I want to address attention to Article 11 of the Minnesota Constitution, and it reads in Section 1, "No money shall be paid out of the treasury of this state except in pursuance of an appropriation by law." Article 11, Section 1, appropriation by law. What's at stake here is the authority of the legislature. How much is at stake? $2 billion. We now have an emergency powers that has exceeded any other emergency power that I can recall in the history. And this is happening today. To put all that responsibility in one person, clearly, our Minnesota Constitution saw the separation of powers, that the legislature would function by appropriation, and the executive branch would follow that appropriation and take care of those many details in accordance with the rest of Minnesota law. But to emphasize again, it is the constitutional duty of the legislature to do the appropriating. And this is about $2 billion. This is not a small amount. Matter of fact, serving in the Transportation Committee, if there is federal money, we don't explicitly authorize the expenditure of that money, appropriating it, they are not able to get that money even though it has already been sent by the federal government. And this is in a much smaller amount of money. We're talking about $2 billion here. Without question, as has been addressed, that we function better when we have more involved. One person or 67 state senators and 134 House members added to the governor. We are going to be by far better off in our expenditures. And remind you that eventually an accounting will come for this money. By far better for the executive branch to have the involvement of the legislature in the decisions that are made for the future of the state of Minnesota. And just to clarify, in the last 2 special sessions, we were back here in a matter of hours, not months, not even days necessarily, but in hours, we were back in special session. And as far as I know, I am personally concerned I'll come back as often as it takes to do the job that we were elected to by the people of Minnesota. And that appropriation authority is vested through the legislature, and I rise in support of Senate File 4486. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion on Senate File 4486, Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I heard some people say they want oversight, but they don't want it to be messy. Messy is sometimes what keeps you from making bad mistakes, and it doesn't have to be messy. I remember sitting at a table to talk about food shelf appropriations, and I thought I understood it, read the bill, and then listened to former Senator Fischbach talk about how it would actually operationalize in her community, and it shifted the bill. More mobile access, which actually suited my district better. So that's what our oversight does. It brings a voice to the table that can be missed. God bless the folks at M&B who make these decisions, but they don't live where we live. They don't have the experiences we have. They probably don't directly know a bar owner who's now been shut down for how many weeks. They probably don't get them texts on a Sunday night. Do you think there's something you could do? The hairdresser? It says, I don't understand why I can't sell shampoo when Walmart can. Those people who are hurting right now depend on us to forward their cause, to echo their voice, and to make sure they're heard. That's why our oversight matters. It's not about us. It's not about our title. It's about them. And it's not about us sticking our nose into M&B's business or getting in the way of the governor. It's about bringing their voice here. The normal LAC process, we go through that a lot. Federal money comes in to expand availability of an existing grant. An existing grant that's already been vetted by the legislature. Most federal money comes into something that's already established. This money is not coming into something that's already established. Who's going to check to make sure townships are being treated equitably if it doesn't come before one of our committees for review? And right now in the LAC, there's no minority caucus voice. Zero minority caucus voice. That should bother you for money this expansive and this unfettered. It has to go to COVID. You can drive a truck through the definition of it has to go to COVID. Somebody needs to keep an eye on this. In an emergency is most when you need a second set of eyes, not to get in the way, not to be cumbersome, not to second guess, but to verify and to watch for gaps, because this is when people get forgotten, and this is when mistakes get made. And that is why, Senator Rosen, I thank you for helping the legislature to keep a voice in a big amount of money in the middle of a crisis. Look at, members, how quickly we moved the hospital money, how quickly we moved money to give the governor flexibility to purchase protective equipment. But it took some vetting and it took some work, and it made sure that there were more voices at the table. That's our job, that's our privilege, and that's why we're here, and that's why I'll be supporting Senator Rosen, and I hope all of you who wish to have a voice in how billions of dollars are spent in Minnesota will join me in voting yes.
The Secretary will give Senate File 4486 its third reading.
Senate File Number 4486, a bill for an act relating to state finances, establishing an account in the federal fund.
Third reading. We're on final discussion for Senate File 4486. I have Senator Isaacson followed by Senator Bigham. Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I've heard some arguments made today about oversight and making sure that we manage the federal funds correctly, and I think if anything, that argument has worked against my friends across the aisle, and all I have to do is look at the way in which they handled the HAVA funding to know that I wouldn't want them anywhere near this federal funding, to make sure it would go someplace that was relevant and helpful. And I think tying the hands of the governor and the things this bill provides is unnecessary, and their track record has proven to be dismal when it comes to managing federal funds. So I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that, and I will be a no vote. Thank you.
Final discussion on the bill, Senator Bigham.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I actually wasn't going to speak today, but I had a call this morning with Dakota County, and the money that they are using out of their reserves to cover COVID-related costs is on tune to be $3 million by the end of the year, to be projected to use their own reserve money. And Washington County, I've spoke to them, and they're at least at $350,000, Mr. President, and on tune to well exceed that out of their own reserves. And I wholeheartedly support what Senator Champion did to make sure that Hennepin and Ramsey get their money directly. And I just hope future legislation that comes before on this topic makes sure that all 85 counties get their money. And directly, just like Ramsey and Hennepin now will if this bill passes and becomes law. The point I guess I also want to talk about is we debate state appropriations. This money is coming from the federal government. They put the guidelines on this. They sent it down to us. So it's important to note that we do have the Oversight Committee that will do this. And Governor Walz, I want to first thank him for his decisive and transparent leadership, his steadfast leadership in this issue, and Commissioner Franz on this. And, you know, he isn't alone. I know that's been said here. And he has the Oversight Committee. We are all here, Mr. President, to help guide him and give him feedback. And we have quite a bit of time yet, obviously, in session to make that point. And I just want to say that we have to remember that in outstate Minnesota and in the suburbs outside of Hennepin and Ramsey, we have counties that are using their own money too, and we put way more tax dollars out of this state and send it to the federal government than we get back. So I hope that the members of the Oversight Committee that are on there, which is the finance chair and our lead, and also the two leaders of our caucuses here, when they're discussing this with the other body, that knowing that future CARES money that comes from the federal government should include more counties than Hennepin and Ramsey, and also think of those small outstate counties and the suburban counties as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Members, we're on final discussion of Senate File 4486. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think everybody in the legislature agrees that there needs to be legislative oversight of these funds and all funds. I don't think that is the issue. The question is that is this the right solution for this particular moment and this particular set of challenges? Basically, we're going back to what was done in a previous circumstance and saying we should use that solution. Others are saying we should use the existing LAC system to deal with federal funds. I think we are looking at a unique situation, unique challenges, and as Senator Rosen indicated, that potentially we should have some funds set aside that we would turn to the, now that we're successfully using LRC to administer. These are all good ideas. These are not included in this bill. Senator Benson made mention that the minority is not included in the LAC. That is true. These are good points. The point is, this particular bill worked for a particular moment in time. I believe we are saying that in this particular situation, with this particular set of challenges, that we need to do some more work here and to get a bill that is more reflective of the situation that we're in, that serves the mandate to do our oversight, but also to make sure that we are able to be flexible in doing what we need to do to address urgent needs as they come up during this time. Thank you, members. I support a no vote on this one.
Final discussion on Senate File 4486. Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Well, it's been a wide-wielding discussion here on this very important issue of how is Minnesota going to best spend over $2 billion of federal money being sent to this state in the wake of COVID-19. And I just wanted to respond to a couple of the discussion points that stuck out to me. Number one does have to do with that oversight. Yes, of course there needs to be oversight. And the question is, where should that oversight be provided? It is the legislature that is tasked with appropriating funds. It is the legislature that has the appropriate committees and the fiscal staff to delve into those funds, how they can best be used for Minnesota. And most importantly, it is the legislature that holds those hearings in the public, where the public can testify. It is essential that we maintain that legislative oversight function. Secondly, it's critically important that we think about who knows the situation the best. I thought I heard one of my colleagues say that the money has been allocated from the feds for certain things. And so there's no more decisions to be made. Well, I'd encourage everyone to read the CARES grant, read the funding, such as the Education Stabilization Grant funding. You will see very broad strokes, but not the individual decisions about appropriations that will be the most effective and efficient for Minnesota. Most of us do not think the feds are in the best position to talk about what education should look like in Minnesota. We don't need a Louisiana model. We don't want a California model. We know what works well in Minnesota. And when we're in critical times, as we are right now, and we have financial challenges, it is even more incumbent upon us that we do the hard work, the diligence, and the oversight to make sure that those funds coming from the federal government are used in the best manner, the most effective, the most efficient manner for Minnesotans. I urge a green vote on Senator Rosen's bill and a vote for accountability, transparency, and the best outcome for Minnesotans.
Final discussion on the bill. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for the very good discussion about this bill. There are just a couple things I want to clarify. Senator Isaacson, the HAVA money is not in this bill. The $6.9 million is federal funding, but it is not contained in this CARES Act. And so that is something that perhaps went down a political route. But I just want to again focus, members, on what we have accomplished together, jointly, with the governor, the House, and the Senate. We've appropriated in Chapter 66 to the Department of Health, the Public Health Response Act of $20.889 million. And then Chapter 70, the hospital's money for the public response transfer of $200 million. And then Chapter 71, the COVID-19 Minnesota Fund, which is $298.2 million. Of $200 million is where the governor uses his ability to be very flexible and nimble with those funds with the oversight of the commission, which has worked smashingly well. And then Chapter 74 for agriculture, the second Harvest Food Bank grant of $1.250, which we have appropriated just this year since the middle of March, $520.4 million. And we have done this in a very bipartisan fashion, and I think we shall all be very, very proud of those measures. And if you remember, folks and members, it was March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, when our state shut down and the landscape and our lens changed dramatically for everyone in this state. And this is a bill that is not a bill to say the governor is doing an inappropriate job or that a political gotcha bill. This is a common sense bill on how to make sure that we have a voice and that the taxpayers who are funding this money to the state has a voice. And that voice is very clearly through the legislature, through our folks, our districts that we represent. And that's what I'm trying to maintain, is that clear voice for those people, those taxpayers, and for those issues that are arising all across the state. And if anybody has read this legislation, the guidelines coming from the federal government, you can see it's very vague. And Senator Nelson addressed that. There's a lot of gray areas, nebulous areas. The legislative oversight is extremely important because of the vagueness that's coming from the federal government. So I would also like to address Senator Bingham's question about making sure that the monies are appropriated to the other 85 counties appropriately, and I couldn't be in more agreement. There are still conversations at this time on how do we get the local government money, which is $667 million out there appropriately. But I also want to say that there's clearly from the federal government, no revenue losses will be replaced. That's clearly in the guidelines. So this is a very challenging few weeks going forward, and we are equipped to do this. We have done it before, members, and I ask for your support for this very common sense, sincere bill. Thank you, Mr. President, members.
Final discussion on the bill, Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Far be it from me to speak for my colleague, Senator Isaacson, but I did want to reiterate something that he had said and clarify based on something that Senator Rosen responded to. I believe he was making an example of the fact that it took a year for this body to pass the HAVA funds that were authorized in 2018 before we could get access to them here in Minnesota. Very clearly passed. We were the last chamber in the entire United States to pass access to those funds. So I believe the concern, again, not wanting to interpret too much on his behalf, the idea is that there is a concern on how we access federal funds and that there's a precedent here. I would also say that there was additional HAVA funds, if you will, $7.3 million that were authorized in the federal budget agreement in 2019, and Senator Rest has a bill for that, and we have not acted on that yet. And in addition, for what Senator Rosen was saying, there is in fact $6.9 million for elections provided for in the CARES Act. So this is a relevant issue. It is a real concern because there is a history in this particular chamber of not acting expeditiously on something that is very clear, very easy, non-controversial. And so that is why you see people saying, wait a minute, we need to make sure that we have a process that really will work, that will not be politicized, and that we can take care of the needs of the people of Minnesota in this challenging time. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator Kent, I think we should probably get clarification because nonpartisan staff is telling me that the $6.9 million for HAVA is not in this particular bill. There are 40 separate funds that are coming to the state, and perhaps there's some confusion in that manner. But that is probably the confusion of what is happening. There's funds for mental health, broadband, Board of Aging. I mean, it goes on and on. So perhaps that clarification we can have later, but I want to make it clear from nonpartisan staff that the $6.9 million is not covered in this bill.
Members, we're on final discussion for Senate File 4486 as amended. Are there any final comments? Any final comments? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 4486. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 303 can make their way down to the chamber, and while they are on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in Capitol Room 237, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber and vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes for the members voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report no for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Torres-Ray.
Senator Torres-Ray votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes no. I'll now call on Senator Benson to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Benson votes aye. I'm sorry, Senator Anderson votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 42 ayes and 25 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, the next bill up for consideration is number 10 on general orders, Senate File 3017, Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 3017 deals with self-directed caregiver grants. There is a slight modification there. First, I would like to thank my bipartisan co-sponsors here in the Minnesota Senate, Senators Abler, Klein, Eakin, and Curran. Furthermore, members, as we're short on time, as we rush to the end of session, I want you to also know where this bill is in the Minnesota House. It's also a bipartisan bill over there with Representative Lippert as the chief author. And of course, it has bipartisan co-sponsors as well. And the House version is identical to the Senate version that you see before you today. We heard Senate File 317 in Senator Housley's Family Care and Aging Committee on February 20th of this year. In committee, we heard powerful testimony from Mary Lehman, who has been the caregiver to her husband, Ken, who lives with Alzheimer's for many, many years. That was powerful testimony. If you were there, you would recall that. And there has been no opposition in either body to this bill. In 2017, the legislature established self-directed caregiver grants to support family caregivers for vulnerable Minnesotans and appropriated funding for those grants. So members, this bill has no cost to it. Those grants have already been appropriated. Senate File 317 makes small changes to those grants to ensure that the funds are available to the family caregivers of most vulnerable Minnesotans. Just to give you a little bit of background, in Minnesota, we have 99,000 Minnesotans living with Alzheimer's disease. In 2019, there were 255,000 unpaid caregivers in Minnesota. They were providing 291 million hours of unpaid care. That has a value of over $3.6 billion. Respite care allows people with dementia to remain in their homes longer while the family caregivers provide much needed support. And particularly in the age of COVID-19, we know that the adult day centers where families would sometimes, their loved ones with Alzheimer's would spend parts of the day at the adult day center, we know that those are now closed. And family caregivers are at home with their loved ones who may be suffering from Alzheimer's. And of course, those family caregivers without respite care would not be able to go to the pharmacy or get needed services like groceries. So the bill before us today deals with grants to those family caregivers. The Board on Aging is required to work with the areas on aging and caregiver stakeholders to administer those grants which have already been appropriated. This legislation also provides a report. We know how important oversight is and helps in making future decisions. This bill requires the Board on Aging to issue a report on certain metrics, like the number of grant awardees, where they are from, and how much the grant was for. This bill before you today will allow family caregivers of older adults to apply for grants by removing the current language that sets priority to consumers referred to the program through the senior linkage line. Today's bill will make the grants more efficient, more effective, and more accessible to the communities to which they are intended to serve. Area agencies on aging have regional offices to better serve families who would use grants. By working with the area agencies on aging, the board will be able to dispense grants to family caregivers more directly and with less delay. Area agencies on aging have established relationships with county officials that work with this population. And again, I mentioned the funds are already there. We just want to make sure that they get out more effectively and more efficiently to those they were intended to serve. And lastly, members, this morning I sent you an email with 4 letters of support. They may be on your desk as well. I just want to have you take note that Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is in support of this bill. M4A, which is the Minnesota Association of Area Agencies on Aging, is in support of this bill. And you also have a letter from the Alzheimer's Association in support of Senate File 3017. I also received an email today from Josh Ney with the Alzheimer's organization stating that AARP is also in support of this bill. They wanted to be listed as a sponsor today as well. With that, members, I stand for questions and ask for your support on Senate File 3017.
Discussion on Senate File 3017. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 3017 will help improve the process for getting the self-directed caregiver grants out by having the board work with area agencies on aging and other stakeholders. I think it's a good bill and urge your support.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will give Senate File 3017 its third reading.
Senate File number 3017, a bill for an act relating to human services, changing a provision on self-directed caregiver grants.
Third reading. Members, we're on final discussion of Senate File 3017. I have Senator Eakin on the list to speak. Senator Eakin.
This bill, these are small steps but very important steps to increase the efficiency and the effectiveness and the accessibility of these grants, most importantly. I just wanted to mention, just from personal experience, my father had passed away about 10 years ago now from dementia and Parkinson's, and my mom cared for him for years before he went into long-term care. And I remember how difficult it was, especially towards the end. Dad would be doing things like getting up in the middle of the night, wandering off, and she couldn't even get a decent night's sleep. And we saw how it was affecting her health. Even Dad, in his more coherent moments, was saying to Mom, we need to do something, and we can't keep on like this. The needs are going to continue increasing for care providers like them. These caregivers are becoming more and more important as the population continues to age. Another epidemic is really facing us here. We talked about COVID-19 a lot, obviously, because this is a tragic pandemic that we're facing here. But there is another epidemic that we're facing, and that's the epidemic we're facing with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other illnesses associated with long-term care or associated with aging. But the high costs with Alzheimer's and dementia are extremely expensive because of the high level of care that's needed and also because of the length of care that's needed. My father was in the nursing home for 6 years, more than 6 years, in the last years of his life. And the nursing home was actually surprised when he came there at how far along he was in the illness and how long Mom had taken care of him for all those years. So he could have been there for much longer yet. And for much of that time, he couldn't do anything for himself. So again, the level of care was intense. So I just wanted to speak in favor of this for that reason. We need to be focusing attention also on this epidemic. It's not only the compassionate thing to do, but it's also the most cost-effective way to do it, because we need all hands on deck in this case as well, making sure we're providing the care that our seniors so desperately need. So thank you, Senator Nelson, for bringing this bill forward. I know you have similar experiences with your own family, and I think this is something that is going to be touching. I mean, everybody's family, I think, is going to be touched by this in one way or another. So thank you for your support.
Final discussion on Senate File 3017. Any final discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 3017. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 303 can make their way down to the chamber. While they're on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber. While they're on their way down, members in room 237, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in Capitol Room 206 can also come to the chamber and vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Torres-Ray.
Senator Torres-Ray votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I will now call on Senator Benson to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Anderson B. votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill up for consideration is number 37 on general order, Senate File 2939, Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. As Senate File 2939 deals with health-related boards, and Mr. President, I have an amendment.
What's the number on the amendment, Senator Nelson?
The amendment is the A1.
Senator Nelson offers the A1 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Nelson moves to amend Senate File Number 2939 as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert. This is the A1 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment includes Senate File 2939, a provision which removes a criminal background check that is actually being applied elsewhere in law for certain boards. I want members to know the background check will be conducted. Oh, Mr. President, do we need to vote on the amendment first?
We do need to vote on the amendment after you're done on discussion of, so we're discussing the A1 amendment.
So I will continue to discuss the amendment then, members. So the A1 amendment does include Senate File 2939, which does remove that duplicative criminal background check, which, be very clear, that background check will still be conducted for certain medical boards. In addition, the A1 amendment includes language to preserve the medical practices, the Board of Medical Practice authority to complete an investigation or a disciplinary action even if the licensee does not renew their license. This prevents the licensee from avoiding an investigation by not renewing, and it will not be initiated until the Board of Medical Practice has received a complaint within 7 years from the date of conduct complained of or reported on. So again, we want to make sure that the Board of Medical Practice still is able to investigate complaints even if the licensee is not renewing their license. Mr. President, there is also a third provision, which is a bill that allows dentists, dental therapists, dental hygienists, and dental assistants to only display their license renewal certificate in plain sight in every office they practice. Members, current law states that the initial license and then every renewal license needs to be displayed as well. I'm just wondering how Senator Limmer would like to display his election certificate and then every new election certificate thereafter. It would be a long line. We want to make sure that our licensing, our dental hygienists, therapists, and dental assistants do display their most current license, but do not need to display all of the previous renewals. With that, members, I'd like to turn it over to Senator Benson. There are two other provisions in the amendment before us, which actually were provisions from Senator Matthews, and I'd like Senator Benson, if she would yield, to discuss those two provisions.
Actually, members, next on my list I have Senator Kiffmeyer, and then we'll go to Senator Benson. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Mr. President, I have an amendment to this amendment, but if the folks would rather complete their discussion of the initial amendment, I can wait till they are done.
Okay. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm stepping in for Senator Matthews. Senate File 3005 was heard in the HHS committee. It is Article 2 in this amendment referring to the Minnesota Board of Occupational Therapy Practice. The board was established in 2018, and as they have been implementing the operations of the board, they found it necessary to do some cleanup and clarification language. And so as they spent a little time with their statute, they did come up with changes that do not impact the scope of practice, but combine definitions, clarify an occupational therapist assistant ability to help with the practice, clarifying and streamlining a temporary licensure provision, the occupational therapy assistant overview and supervision, deletion and cleanup of irrelevant languages, aligning members. Several years ago, we had the health boards move their renewal of licensure and expiration dates to birth month. That is included in this provision as well, clarifying continuing education penalties and requirements. So members, Senate File 3005 is in Article 2 if you have further questions, and that refers to the Board of Occupational Therapy. The Board of Social Work did extensive work on a cleanup bill. This is Article 3, Senate File 3365. This does not change the 4 social work licenses, doesn't change the scope of practice, doesn't lower licensing standards, doesn't enter us into a compact, doesn't change the governance model, doesn't impact other mental health professions. What it does is it removes unnecessary barriers, gives more clarity to this workforce so they can understand and read their statute. It simplifies their application process, reduces the cost of continuing education by allowing more online continuing education credits, and is less prescriptive and more inclusive of qualifications for board members. And again, this was extensively worked on by the Board of Social Work. It has been vetted by the community, and there is support from both the licensing facility and those who are licensed. And members, I can stand for questions on Article 2 and Article 3.
All right, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer the A50 amendment, A50.
And Senator Kiffmeyer, this is an amendment to the A1 amendment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Kiffmeyer offers the A50 amendment to the A1 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment to the amendment.
Senator Kiffmeyer moves to amend the Nelson Amendment to Senate File number 2939 as follows. Page 61 after line 17, insert. This is the A50 amendment.
To the A50 amendment to the A1 amendment, Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is language taken from a bill that has to do with retirement, and especially our nurses coming back from retirement, in particular ICU, other types of critical care, nursing and health workers as well. I want to thank my co-authors on the original language, Senators Hayden, Senator Rosen, Senator Gazelka, and Senator Cohen. And Mr. Chair and Mr. President and members, this language has gone through the Pension Commission. This language has gone through the Public Employee Retirement Association, PARA. It is supported by Hennepin County Health Care and many other healthcare worker entities as well. What it allows those healthcare workers or nurses who have retired but have critical skills that are needed. Right now, they are limited in amount of hours that they can put in and risk losing their retirement benefit, which they worked hard for, just because of coming back to work during this peacetime emergency. This language is only in effect during a peacetime emergency. And Mr. Chair, Mr. President, members, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Members, we're on the A50 amendment to the A1 amendment. I have Senator Nelson and then Senator Hayden. Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. This is a very timely amendment to the A1. We need all hands on deck. We need to make sure that every retired nurse that is willing to come back and help as we combat COVID-19. We want to remove any barriers to them re-engaging in the needed health care. Again, it's all hands on deck. Again, thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer, for proposing this bill and bringing this amendment forward. I'd accept this as a friendly amendment.
Further discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Senator Hayden.
Good. Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer, for bringing this language forward. We had worked on this together. It is extremely helpful for, in particular, those at Hennepin Healthcare to be able to, as Senator Nelson said, bring the all-hands-on-deck approach and bring experienced healthcare professionals, many of them nurses, back to help combat this crisis. And so, once again, this amendment is appropriate and timely and is COVID-related, and I'm glad that we're doing it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
One final comment in regards to the language here. I think what stands out to me also, these are Minnesota nurses and healthcare workers. And so this also is really important to keep those taken care at this time that are from our own Minnesota highly trained staff. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise also in support of this amendment, and I also want to convey that Senator Sandy Pappas has expressed her support for this as well. Thank you.
Members, we're on the A50 amendment to the A1 amendment. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails and the amendment to the amendment is adopted. We are now back on the Nelson A1 amendment as amended to Senate File 2939. Is there any further discussion on the A1 amendment as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Again, we will take a brief pause to capture the votes of the members in the alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Any further discussion on Senate File 2939? Seeing none, the Secretary will give Senate File 2939 as amended its third reading.
Senate File number 2939, a bill for an act relating to health boards.
Third reading. Final discussion on Senate File 2939. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think all 5 or 6 of the bills that have been added to this are reasonable. They're small things, a lot of technical ones, the recodification, the social work statutes, and so on. I urge your support. I think none of them are urgent, except, again, the one for the pensions and so on, for allowing the nurses and so on to come back to work. But they're all good things to do, and I urge your support.
Members, final discussion on Senate File 2939. Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and members. Thank you, Senator Marty. Yes, these are all provisions that have been worked through the Health Committee, and particularly I want to thank Senator Kiffmeyer for this emergency piece as well regarding allowing pensions for those critical workers, those critical nurses that we need back, and we thank them. I encourage a green vote. Thank you, members.
Members, we're on final passage of Senate File 2939 as amended. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 303 can make their way down to the chamber to vote. And while they're on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber to vote. And members in room 237, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 206, please come to the chamber and vote. 206. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of those members voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report an aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Torres-Ray.
Senator Torres-Ray votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report an aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I will now call on Senator Benson to report the votes for those members voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Anderson B. votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, the next bill up for consideration is number 98 on general orders, Senate File 2919, Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate File 2919.
It's on special orders. Senator Kiffmeyer, please proceed with discussion on the bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. A little rusty here. We haven't had some of these processes this time, but thank you for your assistance. I appreciate it. So, members, Senate File 2919, the topic of this bill is athletic trainers. This was put into place about 25 years ago with no adjustments to the Athletic Trainers Act since then. So it is long overdue for some modernizing. In particular, this bill clarifies that athletic trainers are able to serve patients, and patients not just who are athletes, but any patient who would have need of an athletic trainer. These are commonly used, matter of fact, in an orthopedic clinic. The assistants to the orthopedic physician were athletic trainers. So they're very commonly used in many medical settings, serving a degree of patients, and so this updates and modernizes the language. We had an extensive hearing in Health and Human Services where everybody was able to give their input in regards to this bill. And Mr. President, as I work through the language of this is first engrossment. Concerns were addressed in the engrossment that is before us today. And at this time, I know of no opposition to 2919, the updating of the Athletic Trainers Act, and I have no amendments, Mr. President.
Discussion on Senate File 2919. Senator Marty.
Mr. President, Senator Kiffmeyer, I remember physical therapists I thought they were still opposed to it when it passed out of committee. Is that no longer correct?
Senator Kiffmeyer, will you yield for a question?
Yes, I will yield, Mr. President.
Senator Kiffmeyer, did you hear the question?
I did hear the question.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
So in regards to physical therapists, Senator Marty, I have received no letter since then. We believe we addressed their concerns in committee. They were present in committee, and I have received nothing since then in regards to that, so I believe I've addressed their concerns.
Further discussion on Senate File 2919. Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 2919, a bill for an act relating to health modifying the Minnesota Athletic Trainers Act.
Third reading. Members, final discussion on Senate File 2919. We're on final passage of Senate File 2919. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 303, please make your way down to the chamber to vote. And while they're on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber to vote. 323. While they're on their way down, members in room 237, please come to the chamber and vote. Members, we are under a roll call vote. If you're having discussions, please take them outside the chamber. Members in room 206, please come to the chamber and vote. 206. So we have room 323, 237, and 206. Again, members, we're under a roll call vote. Please no discussions on the Senate floor while we're voting. Senator Limmer? I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes for those members voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report no for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Torres Ray.
Senator Torres Ray votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I will now call on Senator Benson to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Anderson B. votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 42 ayes and 24 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill up for consideration is number 11 on general orders, Senate File 979, Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 979 is on the subject of child care training timelines, extension, and the clarification. But in large part, or in all the sections of this particular bill, it is aligning the individual types of training in a common date for the family child care providers, which will minimize their work instead of them being staggered throughout the year. They'll have a single point in time by which all of their necessary and required trainings can line up for them. This means a great deal to them because it makes their world a lot easier. Many times these family child care providers are single employees. They do not have staff and other people to keep track of this. This is their own paperwork. So nothing has changed in regards to the different trainings that are required, but it aligns them for ease of administration. So, Mr. President and members, I ask for your vote yes for Senate File 979.
Discussion on Senate File 979. Senator Marty.
Mr. President, this is a reasonable bill. It's supported by the child care groups, and I think it'll make it easier for child care workers to get their training. I urge your support.
Further discussion on Senate File 979. Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 979, a bill for an act relating to human services, clarifying and extending child care training timelines.
Third reading. Members were on final discussion of Senate File 979. Any further comments? Seeing none, we're on final passage of Senate File 979. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in the retiring room. Members in room 303. Members in room 303 can make their way down to the chamber and vote. And while they're on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber and vote. Members in room 323 can make their way down to the chamber to vote. And members in Capitol Room 237 may also make their way to the chamber to vote. Members in room 206, please make your way to the chamber to vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report an aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Klein.
Senator Klein votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Little.
Senator Little votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes no. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Torres Ray.
Senator Torres Ray votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I will now call on Senator Benson to report the votes of the members voting remotely. Senator Benson.
Mr. President, Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye.
Senator Anderson B. votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Senator Dames votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Matthews votes aye.
Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Senator Newman votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Ralph votes aye.
Senator Ralph votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. Senator Benson.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Senator Westrom votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 66 ayes and 1 nay, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Remaining under motions and resolutions, we will proceed to the confirmation calendar. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the report from the Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, and Housing Policy reported March 2nd, 2020, pertaining to appointments be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes from the members in the remote locations, in the alternative locations, I'm sorry. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the foregoing report be now adopted.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Again, we'll take a brief pause to capture the votes of the members in the alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that in accordance with the report from the Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, and Housing Policy reported March 2nd, 2020, the Senate, having given its advice, do now consent to and confirm the appointment of Department of Agriculture Commissioner Thom Peterson, Pine City, Pine County, Minnesota, effective January 7th, 2019 for a term expiring on January 2nd, 2023.
Discussion on that motion, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thom Peterson was appointed by Governor Walz after having served for almost 17 years as the Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Farmers Union. In the 8 years that I have been here, I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Peterson a number of times, having served on the agriculture committees, and I would just like to comment that he has certainly proven his knowledge and his ability in terms of agriculture, both in terms of production agriculture, whether we're talking about the farm markets, farmer market growing, or whether we're talking about large-scale operations. He's demonstrated a keen keen insight onto agricultural production businesses, processing businesses, and he has been certainly a strong advocate for agriculture in general. In these past few weeks, as we have dealt with the COVID situation, he has continued to remain in close contact with the chairs of the Agriculture Committee and has sought out our input, has tried to work with us so that we could arrive at bipartisan agreement on issues that stand in front of the agricultural community. And it is with a very distinct sense of pride and pleasure that I am able to stand here and announce on behalf of the committee a strong endorsement for Thom Peterson as the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I would encourage everyone's aye vote.
Further discussion on the motion, Senator Dietzig.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Senator Fongher is the minority lead for Ag, Rural Development, and Housing Policy, and I am the minority lead for the Senate Ag, Rural Development, and Housing Finance Committee. So on behalf of Senator Hurd and myself, I rise today to offer support to confirm Thom Peterson as Commissioner of Agriculture. Mr. Peterson is a longtime advocate and champion for Minnesota farmers. Prior to his appointment as Commissioner last year, he worked to lay the groundwork for many important initiatives and programs Minnesota has today, including Rural Finance Authority, Beginning Farmer Tax Credit, Industrial Hemp, and Sustainable Agriculture Grants. The district I represent is East Minneapolis, so I also appreciate his continued support and work on urban ag and programs for outreach to minority farmers. Farmers and the farm economy have been struggling during Mr. Peterson's time as commissioner. He has traveled the state meeting with farmers and stakeholders. Governor Walz mentioned earlier in one of his press conferences that he has been out meeting with farmers and rural community, especially during this COVID situation, and he always finds it interesting that when he gets there, they always tell him, oh, Commissioner Peterson has already been here. He does do his work. As Senator Weber said, Mr. Peterson has gone out and sought input and feedback all across the state. And he brings his team together so that they can work on those issues and recommend well-informed policy decisions. His leadership brings people together to work on those issues to help farmers and the farm economy, from dairy assistance to ag emergency preparedness to rural mental health and to now the COVID-19 situation. If you have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Peterson, either at a random conversation at Farm Fest or in committee, it becomes very clear, very quickly, that he deeply cares about farmers, the farm economy, and Minnesota. It doesn't matter what size farm you have, if you farm with organic or conventional methods, if you raise canola in Roseau, kale in East St. Paul, or dairy cows in Gaylord, he cares about you, your family, your farm, and it shows. Mr. Peterson understands the challenges farmers face. I think he gets up every morning and tries to figure out ways to help them, but he is very optimistic, and he also looks for opportunities to really bring Minnesota and that farm economy forward to lead the nation. He has the skills to provide the necessary innovative leadership at the Department of Ag. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Peterson and his dedicated team for their outreach and openness to me and the other senators as we work on critical issues at the legislature. So again, on behalf of Senator Hurd and myself, we are pleased to recommend and support Mr. Peterson's confirmation, and we ask for a green vote.
Further discussion on the confirmation, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Dietzig, I just love it that you are the lead on Senator Westrum's committee. I just think that's awesome, and I appreciate your understanding of agriculture and your willingness to participate in the issues that are facing agriculture right now. And for those that may not know, but I'm going to tell you, I'm an old retired agronomist myself, and some people would say that I'm not old, but I am definitely retired. And I've lived in the ag world for a very long time and have worked with Commissioner Peterson, Thom Peterson, for a very long time in his role with Farmers Union. And I can honestly say that I have never felt his position was anything political. It's always been very authentic, and he's always had a steady hand at whatever he's doing. And I couldn't be more proud and happy to stand up in support for his being Commissioner of Ag, because I feel that what we are right now in this difficult situation with COVID, that leadership is going to lead us through this. These very difficult times. I remember July 4th, I received a call back from Commissioner Peterson over a hemp and some banking issues on July 4th. The gentleman kept working, and it's not unusual to receive a call from him at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and that's when his day starts, and it's going strong. So, Commissioner Peterson, if you're watching this testimony to your leadership, and I feel very strongly that you're going to lead us through this difficult time. So thank you very much.
Further discussion on the confirmation. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise in support of Thom Peterson and his confirmation. You know, it's interesting representing a number of counties that are total agriculture, and to know that there's two farm groups, Farmers Union and Farm Bureau, and Farmers Union leans one way, Farm Bureau leans the other way politically, and yet once Thom Peterson was selected to be the commissioner, both sides rallied around him as a true advocate of the ag community. And so that's the perfect pick, somebody that is passionate about the area that they've been given responsibility, and somebody that has earned the respect from both sides of the aisle to get his job done. And then for me, as the leader of the Senate, he also, in addition to being that advocate, communicates on a regular basis. And that's what I appreciate about a commissioner. When they'll come in and communicate and advocate are the two big things that I'm looking for. And frankly, that what we're going to need as we approach what I believe is a looming, very large crisis for the ag community. We're finding reports just now of hundreds of thousands of swine that are going to be euthanized and just buried as we run through COVID crisis. Many, many, many chickens, I don't even know the numbers, that are just destroyed and made into dog food. We have this looming crisis with ethanol, and what are we going to do with the fact that people aren't using it as much? And so he's the right guy to approach that. I think he is the person that can push against some of the other agencies to find the best solutions related to ag, and so I do offer my enthusiastic support for Thom Peterson.
Seeing no further discussion, Senator Weber renews his motion to confirm Thom Peterson as Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to capture the votes of the members in the alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails and the commissioner is approved. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the appointment withdrawn from the Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, and Housing Policy and placed on the confirmation calendar under Senate Rule 8.2, reported in the Journal for April 20th, 2020, be returned to the committee from which it was withdrawn. The Minnesota Housing Finance Agency Commissioner, Jennifer Ho.
Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in the alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Moving to the 13th order of business, announcements of Senate interest. Members, any announcements? Members, I have one announcement. Many of us have been hearing from local food shelves on the increased demand and the need for additional resources to support that increased demand. As a result, I've been working with food shelves throughout the state to initiate a Senate-wide fundraiser, members and staff, to support food shelves throughout the state of Minnesota. So please keep an eye on your email. There will be more details to come. But again, this will be a Senate-wide initiative, members and staff, to support food shelves throughout the state of Minnesota. And if it goes beyond the Senate and the public gets involved, that's even better yet. So please keep an eye out in your email. Hopefully later today there will be more information on that. Are there any other announcements of Senate interest? Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we're going to adjourn till Thursday, but we're going to come back at 9 a.m. Instead of the normal 11, so just pay attention to that. We have the tax bill, the election bill, and some other things that we'll be doing as well. So just pay attention to that. But, Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, April 30th at 9 a.m.
Senator Gazelka moves that the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, April 30th, 2020 at 9 a.m. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The motion prevails and the Senate is adjourned.